But I'm like secretly glad that Charlie's having technical difficulties because technology like makes me sweat. And when my shit doesn't work, I'm like, oh my God. So I'm like
Yeah.
so happy. I hope his computer like shut down totally.
Yeah.
So you can be like, I think it's that mic you got, Charlie.
Yeah. Thanks a lot, Charlie. Wasting our time.
Oh no, he's probably gonna see this later when it records.
It's another Friday. This week I did it my way. I made lots of juice, and now I feel a boost. Baby say, oh, it's the way I make my juice. Pressing fruits and roots. This week I did it my way. Baby say, oh, now let's have some fun. There is nothing greater than Fridays at Goodnature.
Woo! What's up, my juice lovers? Welcome to Goodnature Radio. This is your host, Charlie Wetlaufer, joined by my esteemed co-host, Chef Ari, the #1 juice business consultant in the world, and author of The Juicing Companion, and of course, the wonderful Olivia Esquivel, founder and owner of Southern Press Juicery, the Wild Crafty Collection, and of course, with our returning guest, friend of the show, Eric Wetlaufer. What's up, Eric?
Hello, hello.
I just want to bring up something real quick that I'm a little bit embarrassed about. Last week, I said, I don't know why I'm seeing American flags all over the neighborhood. It must be for Thanksgiving or something. And Olivia, being the soccer mom she is, says, no, it's for the World Cup, stupid. It's because it's like celebrating the World Cup or something. And Ari just sat there silent. Then it turns out we were all wrong. It was actually for Veterans Day. But
I feel horrible.
I know. Somebody commented on the.
I was like, this is how we get canceled, Charlie. This is it. This is how we go out.
I know. I feel bad too, but I don't feel that bad because I just never know what's going on. I never know if it's a holiday or if the business is closed or open or whatever. So
sorry.
Apologies to all the veterans out there. And before I forget, I do want to mention you can comment on our videos on YouTube. I do literally read each and every comment. Some of them make me feel good. Some of them make me feel bad, but I do read them all. And I do either reply or like forward it to the proper person. So if you're watching this or listening to this on YouTube and you want to provide feedback or you have a different opinion about something or you just want to message us, you can leave a comment on the video. That's a good way to get in touch with the podcast. And also, of course, you can leave a message at goodnature.com/radio. Leave a voicemail there. We do have a couple messages today, which we'll get to later. Of course, this podcast is brought to you by Goodnature, the world leader in commercial cold pressed juicers and juice business consulting, 100% family owned business, which was founded in 1976 by our dad, Dale Wetlaufer. If you'd like to, I already said that. Also, we are off next week for Thanksgiving, so there will be no episode next week. We'll be back the following week after that.
Sure, it's not like the World Cup or some other like national.
It is the World Cup on Monday. USA is playing, and my kids are getting out early dismissal for us to watch it.
Oh, is that why there's all those trees everywhere with those shiny balls on them and stuff? Anyway, we already bought a Christmas tree, by the way. I'm super excited about
nice.
Christmas. Yeah.
Just hoping I'll have a house by Christmas. I'm still homeless.
Oh, really?
Hoping to. Yeah, they're telling me I can maybe close on like December 22nd. I was like,
ooh, that's rough.
Consider it.
So even if you close on the 22nd, are you going to move in before Christmas, or are you going to wait till?
Well, oh hell yeah! I'm going to move in like December 1st, and if they're still in there on ladders, I'm going to make them hang up my lights. I mean, we got a holiday to celebrate here. I mean, I'll be illegally squatting, but I'll be in there.
Yeah, I mean, what are they going to do?
Yeah,
they kind of call the police on you on Christmas? I think not. All right, so agenda today, we're going to talk a bit about customer service and handling customer complaints.
Yeah.
We're going to talk about there's a looming lettuce shortage in the world apparently, and how to deal with shortages. And seasonal prices fluctuations. We're going to talk a little bit about preservation using rosemary extract, and then get into a new segment, brand new, which we'll be doing every week, called Pro Tips with Ari and Olivia, where every week we'll get one expert tip only heard here on the Goodnature Radio from the world's premier juicing experts. All right, let's get into it. What do you say?
Let's do it.
All right, let's talk about customer service response times. Olivia, you sent me this. Can you guys see my screen?
Yeah.
All right. Olivia, you sent me this tweet where somebody did a study. Let's see. Study of tweets to airlines shows that when a tweet is answered in 5 minutes or less, the customer will pay almost $20 more for a ticket on the airline in the future. So they're saying there's a correlation between response times and how much someone will pay for something. And obviously, we don't work in the airline industry, and Twitter's probably not the first place our customers reach out to us in the juice bar industry. But I think this is just a great way to open up a conversation about customer service and handling complaints and stuff. So, Olivia, we can start with you. Just if someone complains to you online, how do you instruct your staff to handle it?
Well, first of all, I want to give a little background on this. So I sent this to Charlie while I'm in this really awesome James Beard Foundation group for women chefs and women owners of restaurants. And we were talking about customer service and your relationship with your guests. And this is the example the professor from the Cornell School of Food and Hospitality used. So that's why I was like sending it to you. So obviously it's not in our industry, but this correlation between when you actually address the problem with a guest, you're more likely to start to build more of a rapport with them and a relationship, a trusting relationship. And this is something that happens quite a bit with Southern Pressed Juicery. And I think it's because I've been working for so long on that social media and really creating a voice behind our social media. And it's something I encourage other small businesses to do. One of the things that I notice happens a lot with small businesses is we get so emotionally tied to our business, right? We're so emotionally invested. We're putting in the hours, 40, 50, 60 hours a week. We love the product, particularly that we all do in this industry. And it really hurts our feelings when somebody doesn't like it, or when somebody has a bad experience, or they say the juice was gross or was out of date. And all of these, like defense mechanisms, I think, start coming up. And I know in my head, like when something comes up about my almond milk, I'm like, well, they left it out of the fridge. Like that's, you grabbed it and then you went to your grocery store, and then now you're going to tell me it's my fault that the almond milk spoiled. That's, and so I always like in my head, will start with this defense mechanism. But I've learned through the years that the best way to do it is to just face it head on. I'm so sorry. Try to identify exactly what went wrong, whether it was a customer service experience with one of your associates, which you need to address, or if it was product related. If it was product related, make sure that you're getting exactly the purchase date, what product they purchased, what the expiration date is on the top, because if you're doing a lot of volume, you may have that juice from two different batches, right, chef? Like you may have obviously something that is going out maybe today or tomorrow, and then you've already juiced that batch again, and then newer juices in the back. So it's really helpful to know the expiration date, because that'll help you track back to what batch that came out of and identify if there's more juices from that same batch in the fridge. If something went wrong on the customer service side, or if there is a batch that's the same in the fridge, you can take it out and taste it and kind of do some research yourself. And then just kind of let the staff know, hey, something went wrong with this juice. Let me know if you see any other complaints. I always start by saying, thank you so much for showing us grace, because no matter how pissed off they are, as long as I say that, it kind of smooths over the, it's like my way of saying like, hey, thanks, jerk, like for not leaving me a bad Google review. Like, thank you for giving me the chance to fix it. And then I always offer a gift card. Rather than refunding it, I'd rather give money away for them to come in and let us prove to them that we can do it right. Rather than just refunding them. Of course, if they insist on a refund, I will, but that's always sort of like my last offer.
Yeah, I think with complaints in general, a lot of times people always think it's just front of the house, people that interact with the guest or the owner, but it also involves the chefs, the cooks, even the dishwashers. You know, you're in the food industry, but it's more importantly, it's the hospitality industry, you know, and you got to take complaints, kind of examine them and see if there's any, if they're valid or not. But for example, like with cooks or chefs or the owners, having policies in place, you know, and knowing what you can and can't handle with certain situations is extremely important. I'll give you an example of it. I went to eat at a Vietnamese restaurant with my wife and son 2 weeks ago, and we actually got kicked out of the restaurant. It's a crazy story. We went in, we had a big bowl of soup, and we asked for some limes, and they're like, okay, it's going to be an extra $1.50. That's fine. It took a little bit, and I started giving my son some animal crackers. They kicked us out of the restaurant. They're like, you can't bring outside food in and all this stuff. And it just comes down to like the owner being able to explain their policies to their staff and not have them overreact on, you know, no outside food policy. There's certain ways to handle situations, and I think it starts with the owner and it works its way down. And you got to address each situation as an opportunity. You know, certain challenges, if you overcome them, it is a real great chance that you can get a repeat guest from that, you know, if you're able to accommodate and adjust for them. So it's really important.
Absolutely. And I will say too, like I always, for some reason, I can stomach the ones that are directly in my DMs on Instagram more than I can the Googles and the Yelps. There's a study that we were talking about in the same class where basically, you know, the further away the review is in time and in distance, the more likely it is to be a good review. The quicker review that you have, like, you know, at 9:23 a.m. and the guest is from in town, the more likelihood it is to be a bad review. And I can always tell, like when I get a Yelp notification or a Google notification at like a weird time or any time, I'm like, whoop, somebody's pissed off. Somebody just had right now within the past 5 or 10 minutes a bad experience. And I'll go back and I'll find it on the cameras before I even talk to the manager. And so those sometimes are harder for me because I do think there are people in the world that exist that are just bad review people that just love to leave a bad review. People that have great experiences typically don't leave reviews, although they should, because that's what really, I think, can cripple a small business. So you can't ever get rid of those. But I will say that I have won over some bad reviews in my past by addressing them right away, calling them out, letting them know, you know, thank you for showing me grace. I'm so sorry. I was able to locate the exact problem, have trained that staff member and spoken to the entire house about it. Please, you know, see us for a gift certificate or, you know, a way for to make this better. And I've had people actually go back and change like 1 or 2 star reviews to a 4 or 5 star review just based on that interaction of how I handled that situation. So all in all, don't ignore a bad review. Don't take it personally. Don't be defensive. Just try to figure out what happened, what went wrong. It may be your fault or their fault. It doesn't matter. At the end of the day, happy guest is what you want. And so just try to find a way to make it right for them. Don't just ignore it.
Eric, I know it's rare, but sometimes customer service issues get escalated to you. What's your general philosophy and how we should be handling complaints?
So I think, Olivia, you're right about don't get defensive. I think something, even if the customer might be wrong in your eyes, like, no, they're not supposed to leave the almond milk out. Right. I think that sometimes it's just their expectations are different than your expectations of how things should have gone. And like clearing up and making sure, hey, we better set the expectations differently for the next group of customers. Even if, you know, you lived up to your end of the bargain, they can still be a very unhappy customer because their expectations were off of what your offerings were. So the clearer those things are, the better. I think if it gets to a point where someone's actually already upset you have to think about you've been an upset customer before. Already got booted out of a restaurant for giving his kid an animal cracker. So there's this like,
but why'd you really get kicked out, Ari? That's what I want to know.
Yeah, what's the real story?
It was really, you can't bring outside food or alcohol, sir. Yeah.
No vape pens in the dining hall.
Sir, for the last time, put the vape pen away. There's no outside alcohol. So I think once you get mad and you're a customer, you want to affect some type of response that kind of calms you down. So you can say, you know what, we lived up to our end of the bargain. I'm really sorry that that's the end of the story. If you don't give something like a gift card or something like that, they feel like they have to go, what's my next option? I'm going to go to Yelp or I'm going to go somewhere.
Right.
And just hearing often, I'm really sorry that you experienced this. A lot of times people get upset with us is because something's broken or didn't arrive that they ordered, or, the UPS guy dropped something off a truck. And maybe it's not our fault, but we can still say sorry that you're going through this. And, oh, this really stinks. We're going to do everything we can to help you out of this situation. So I think them knowing that you're emotionally on their level with, acknowledging the fact that they're upset for a justifiable reason goes a long way too. But
it is frustrating when, a complaint comes in or gets posted online and the tone is like, Goodnature intentionally did this thing and now I feel bad about it. It's like, look, guys, we're trying to run a really good business here.
Yeah.
And occasionally we mess up or a machine breaks down. But I do get defensive. Like my first emotional instinct is to get defensive because it's like, well, obviously we didn't do this on purpose,
You pour your heart and your soul into this.
We want you to be a happy customer, idiot.
Yeah.
But
yeah.
But then you do have to kind of take.
Call the customer an idiot. That's usually something you don't do, generally speaking.
Yeah, no, I'm just saying that's my emotional reaction.
Yeah.
And then you have to just take a breather and then think about what's really going on. And I think the internet complaints are the worst though. Like it's like, look, just reach out to us.
Yeah.
Be polite, tell us there's a problem, and we'll give you the best service we can every time. Like
if there's not opportunity to stop someone,
you
don't
get extra good service for being a jerk,
Right, and I think sometimes too, like I'll like, what is that called, like passive aggressive? Like I'll be like, oh, thanks for showing us grace. We're all humans. Like, like God, like sorry, dude. Like she forgot your straw. Like big whoopee, like sorry, So sometimes I do that really just to satisfy myself. It's not something I'm recommending that you do, but I just remembered one time I had a lady drive an hour and a half to come to Southern Press Juicery because she thought that we did fresh pressed juice. And she wanted a specific pressed juice.
Like
we have the X1.
Order.
Yes, made to order. So she drove an hour and a half. I'll never forget this in my life. And I happened to be in the store and she wanted a concoction that was nowhere near anything that I offered that was already juiced. And she couldn't understand why I couldn't just juice it. I took her to the back. I showed her the X1. I told her I couldn't just press one bottle of juice. She just wanted one bottle of juice, but I'd be happy to make it in the Vitamix. And I showed her all these other juices that were similar to, had maybe ginger that she wanted or chard or whatever it was. I can't remember that she wanted. Nothing would do. The lady left. She came back 2 more times. And by the third time I was gone already. She came back on the third time to be like, because clearly she'd driven an hour and a half. So she just walked around downtown pissed off that I couldn't do like a one-off juice for her. But so a lot of it, I think, too, does kind of fall back on you in terms of your customer education. So I went back and I reviewed our website where she had found us, and I tried to find the places where I thought maybe she had gotten confused on the concept and what we were offering. And I adjusted that, and hopefully that helped. But then also, I do think it is like, go back to the almond milk thing. Whenever that happens, it reminds me to go back and train my staff and say, make sure that when people are taking this cleanse that has this almond milk, or you're seeing this, almond milk go out the door a lot, that you explain to them, this is a very temperature sensitive product. Make sure you either put it in the fridge right away or consume it right away. If you can tell they're walking around downtown with 10 shopping bags and they're plopping it in their purse, that's your time to give an expectation of what that product what will happen to that product if they don't take care of it, right? If they don't either consume it right away or get to a fridge. So even if they did leave it out for 3 hours in their car, it was still an opportunity for you to explain the product. And I think that's what makes this industry a little bit more different, is that there is so much customer education. And if you're missing that component in your training with your staff, you're going to end up having a lot more complaints than you really should.
Also, I feel like sometimes a complaint is such a good way to form a real relationship with a customer. Like if they complain about something, then you show them that you can make it right. You may have just won a very loyal customer for a very long time. Like sometimes you get a more loyal customer out of a customer that has a bad experience first, but then you make it right. Now they see like, oh, this is a great company. The owners really care about the customers, and they end up, potentially shopping with you for a long time then because of that.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm. And Ari, you said one thing about, you have rules like no outside food or drink, and your kid pulled out crackers and they kicked you guys out. And it's about training your staff on when you enforce rules. I totally agree with that, because at Goodnature too, we have terms in our agreement. Those terms are really to protect us from malicious customers that are trying to take advantage of us, right? But if it's just an honest customer that has a bad experience that needs a little something to be happy, like we don't enforce the terms,
Yeah, there's a benefit of the doubt that goes into those decisions.
Yeah.
So Ari, did you leave a Yelp review?
I did. That was my first Yelp review.
Good for you.
It would probably take a lot to get Ari to leave a Yelp review.
It was. I mean, it was.
Did
rough.
they respond? Did they respond?
No, they. And there was like 4 other reviews on that. It was. I mean, we were waiting for the food. They didn't have a kids menu or anything. It was kind of. I was like,
no
geez.
wontons, no nothing.
It was crazy.
Okay, we can move on to supply chain shortages. So there's a notice set up by one of our produce suppliers we use at Goodnature when we're testing machines and stuff. Here's what it says on the flyer. There's an industry-wide disruption in the lettuce crop. It is projected to hit the hardest for the next few weeks, but we could see challenges for the next 6 to 8 weeks until new growing areas are up to volume. This will have an effect on all lettuce products. The hardest hit, however, will be iceberg lettuce. Romaine and leaf lettuce will also see challenges. High heat, rain, and crop disease have all contributed to this. Suppliers are unable to source raw product, and our supplies are being cut back by 50% or more. Raw product shortages trickle down to processed lettuce mixes, which are blah, 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 blah. Okay, so that is, first of all, interesting that we're going to see a lettuce supply chain shortage coming up. And I guess most importantly, though, let's talk about how you deal something with like this. Like, what if you have one of your best-selling recipes has lettuce as an ingredient? And worst case, you're not going to be able to get lettuce at all, but best case, the price is going to go up a lot, because whenever there's a supply chain shortage, prices go up because of supply and demand. So how do we deal with that in the juice business? Ari, do you want to go first?
Yeah, definitely. There's a lot of different ways to be able to prepare for it. Nothing concrete though. Number one, I always say develop relationships with your purveyors. Like that example, them sending it out, they're giving you a heads up. Okay, that's number one, is really just kind of preparing for that, having that relationship so that they'll notify you, give you as much heads up as possible. Next thing is, on your production standpoint, is analyzing every aspect of your operation, not just produce, talking about equipment, station staffing, everything. This should be a weekly occurrence. What is going to shut your operation down? My juicer shuts down. Rarely happens, but it might. Okay, if you have someone calling sick, you're short on staff, you need to go ahead and prepare for all these certain aspects and seeing how you can get up and running as quickly as possible. So same way that they're giving you a heads up there, you want to do that as well in your operation. So for example, weighing and washing the produce the night before. That way, if I was doing it that day of, I might realize some of the lemons or citrus was bad, or certain products were bad, and I'm scrambling for that day's production. You're building that kind of head start for your product. As long as it doesn't affect the quality of the juice, go for it. Build that gap if you can. Next up is, analyzing your recipes, realizing what every aspect brings to the table flavor wise. For there's a shortage on the lettuces coming up. So be prepared and think about what that lettuce does to those certain recipes. Like all that stuff, you could probably source a different variation of the green, that might be hydroponically grown, where it might not be affected. Start testing right away. And you have you have 2 weeks to prepare for that, I believe it said. But always keep those notes and experimenting with stuff, because it will probably come down to substituting a particular ingredient for something similar. There's other instances for certain recipes where I use apples, for example. You have all these varieties of apples. Some are really sweet, some are tart, like the red and green apple. I like to always use a combination for that. And then the other ingredients, when it's in and out of season, it might be sweeter, a little less sweet. You could actually adjust those apples and have a similar flavor throughout the season, when the other items like a pineapple might be short. If it's coming in not as sweet, you could add a little bit more red apple to that. So there's certain things that you can kind of prepare for. There's always going to be something that'll come up, but planning is the number one thing to be able to get ready for that.
Hey, Olivia, I'll go to you next, but let me play. I forgot to play a related voicemail we got on this topic, so let me play that before you hear.
G'day. My name is Will from Green Roots Juicery here in New Zealand. Something which we've always struggled with, which I'm assuming other juiceries have had the same. So our products cost changes with the season and with the weather. So the raw product cost per kg, or in your case per pound. The yield that we receive can vary dramatically. So we've always found it hard to price the products, because one, we're dealing with a varying product cost and varying yield as well. So it can come down to the juice bag quality, the quality of the produce. But I'm just wondering if you've ever had.
Okay, got a little cut off at the end there, but basically dealing with seasonal cost fluctuations, which is kind of related to the supply chain issues. So, all right, Olivia, you want to jump in here?
Yeah, I agree with Chef Ari. I think you can't put all your eggs in one basket. So you've got to have more than one purveyor. So if your regular purveyor can only get you, let's say, half of what you normally get from them, then maybe you can find another purveyor who can get you another half, and then now you've got your whole of what you need. Shop around. I get a little bit nervous sometimes. I don't know if this happens to you, Chef Ari, but because things have been coming in and out of availability. When I'm looking at some of my clients from Goodnature, when they put on a label like green apples or red apples, and they marry themselves to one particular variation of that produce, I get really nervous, because they can just as well say apple, and then give themselves some fluctuation to move as prices and availability sort of shift around us. That's one thing, is kind of give yourself, some space. And then the other thing is, like, I have one sometimes, I have a juice called hippie lettuce that calls for green chard. It's a green juice. I would say it's a medium juice. It's sweetened with pear instead of with apple, chard, kale, ginger, sea salt, and lime. It's pretty sophisticated. A lot of times, well, not a lot of times, some of the times we can't get green chard in the way that we want to get green chard. So we will produce it with red chard. And what happens is what was a green juice is now red. It's a red juice. And people are like, what the hell? Like, this is my favorite juice, and it was green. This must be bad. And again, comes back to that customer education and explaining to them, no, knowing your product, having front of the house knowing what's happening in the back of the house and saying, oh, it's the same. That's really, we just had to use a red chard because it was in better shape than the green chard was. Taste will be very similar, if not exactly the same. But that's the beauty of working with a live product like we do. So kind of, again, always kind of coming back around to reminding them the quality of the product, that you are dealing with a live product, that you're subject to fluctuations in the market. So yes, I think it's okay. Sometimes we'll have something that's totally missing. And so, on our labels where we have the ingredients, if chef feels like he can go ahead and produce that juice and it still is, a valid juice without that one ingredient, he will produce it and then just cross it out, with very delicately with a Sharpie. If he feels like he needs to substitute it, that's the only time I agree with writing on a handwritten label, is maybe very small, write it on the handwritten label, or let this register person know so that if somebody pulls that juice, they can say, oh, just so you know, we were out of celery this time. We've used et cetera, for that juice instead. So again, just giving that customer education, talking about it on your social media, being upfront about it. I'm not a big fan of changing my prices for a temporary issue. I wait for it to be a long-standing issue, something that I see is around to stay for a long time. But, back to the call, like when he sometimes getting a little bit more yield, maybe like when pineapple is sweeter or watermelon is in season, then less yield. I just don't think it's right to switch and start changing your juices 50 cents or $1 every time. This is live product. You should have enough margin in your juice to know, hey, this time, I'm working with the 23% food cost, and crap, for another week, this one's going to be at 38% food cost, which is not great, but you've got to make the decision to either 86 that product and get it off the shelf, or just, I'm making a little bit less money on the juice this week and it'll go back to normal next week.
Yeah. Or if that consistently changes prices, you have a couple options. You could either change ingredients that are consistently changing prices,
yes,
or just keep them as a seasonal option, lightly seasonal. If you have a good price on that product for 6 months, keep it for 6 months. Yeah. It doesn't have to be for 3 months at a time for a seasonal item. Run it kind of seasonally. And as far as the yields kind of dropping when produce goes in and out of season, I always find it's always gradual. Say you're making large batches of, your green juice, and it will slowly start decreasing or increasing in volume. When I test recipes, it's always important when you put your weights down, then you juice everything together and you figure out how much volume you actually produced. You need to go slightly above it, about 5%. If you're doing a large amount, I would probably reduce that down to 3% above that. And that way it gives you enough time to adjust if you see it gradually getting closer and closer to the amount you're getting. And the worst case that happens is you're overproduced slightly. And that's what you use for, testing, make sure it's good, giving out that for a sample for customers. But everything is gradually. That's why it's important to always test your juices, keep an eye on that, and make the adjustments as you go.
Yeah, I mean, if something is really significantly impacting your yield, something is wrong. Like, I could see maybe being short a bottle or half a bottle, but I mean, if you're short like 5 or 6 bottles, I mean, it's time to cut that and realize that that's a seasonal, like for the watermelon, for instance. I mean, sometimes we can get 20 bottles out of 1 or 2 watermelons, which you should be doing this summer. You're just basically printing cash on that. It's a really good food cost. But the second that starts to drop, man, it's not worth it anymore, because now I'm not going to take what was a nice watermelon $8 or $9 juice. I'm not going to price it at 11 because it's just, at least my recipe is just watermelon and rosemary. It's time to go. So if you're having a small yield problem, turn that into a sample juice. Like Chef said, sample that out. That should give you more sales. If you're having something more drastic than that, then something's gone wrong.
How far could you take the more general ingredients listing? Like you said, red apple or green apple, just list apple. But I know sometimes you go to restaurants that pride themselves in the seasonal menu and they just say the salad has like seasonal greens in it or something. Do you think that would fly, or do people want to know specifically?
I do it. I was on my made to order smoothies and bowls, particularly my fresh fruit toppings. I used to put what we had, and the one that always got me was kiwi. And again, love it or hate it fruit. And I'll be damned, at the second I ran out of kiwi, 3 people came in and saw it on the menu and were like, "Why didn't I get kiwi on my bowl?" So I changed my offerings to fresh fruit on my made to order bowls to be seasonal fruit. For me, it's usually strawberries and blueberries because that's what I can get the most of. And so what'll happen, Charlie, is I'll put seasonal fruit on there, and if a guest has a question, they will ask, "What is the seasonal fruit today?"
Yep.
And we'll say, we have available strawberries, blueberries, kiwi, raspberry, whatever. And then we just go from there.
I could see, though, it'd be tougher on juice. It's easier on things that you can customize. But if you just had on the juice bottle, like seasonal greens, someone would be like, "Well, is there kale in this? I really hate kale," or something, It might cause
I think you've got to be more specific about that. I think you could just say kale and not say exactly what kind of kale it is, or just say chard and not say it's red or green chard, or
just
apples,
say lettuce.
I mean, I think you've got to be. What do you think, Chef? I think you got to if it's romaine, you got to tell them it's romaine.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, there are tons of key staple produce items. I mean, unless have a juice bar on an island or some kind of difficult place. I mean, there are some staples that you could always find, and it varies from demographic to demographic. If you're in a certain area, you'll have some key staples and that you should be building your menu around to begin with, But I like the idea of being kind of general, like the seasonal fruit, and that's a great way to have your employees engage with the customers as well. Even saying, "Oh, we got these fresh kiwis from this farm here," explaining where it's sourced from. It's always kind of like an added value type thing.
Absolutely.
Eric, I know you deal with supply chain issues all the time. I know it's not in a restaurant type situation, but you have anything to add?
I don't know. Is it typical to pay for like per quantity pricing on produce? Like a case of lemons, is that a certain amount of pounds of lemons, or is it a count of lemons?
Yeah, it's pretty rough. The lemons, pineapples, always when you deal with purveyors, they always give you price per case, and that's always a big challenge. It's like,
is it
just give me the price per pound?
Yeah, right. And then like this last, I got a half a case of lemons. When I peeled them, they were like mostly, what is it, the pith or the white part? Like there was so much of that the lemons were like a third of the size they normally were. I'm like, man, if I just did 1,000 bottles of this, it would have been crazy swing in my pricing.
Yeah.
Or like fennel, I buy fennel. It's $5 for a head of fennel, but they're like a third the size they were this summer. The pricing hasn't changed because people just use it. Yeah, cut it up and put it in whatever. But when you're juicing, it's like, no, I need to know how much this weighs because that's how we make juice.
Yeah, that's the other thing. It's not only the yield of juice you get, but it's like the yield. If you order a case of something and it's like less stuff in there.
And usually that stuff refers to like the size, like 120 count means like there's 120 normally in a case. And that goes back to, making relationships with your purveyors. It's not just being nice to them. A great thing that I always used to do is talk to them. Usually you'll have a rep if you have a larger account, and just let them know, like, hey, if you ever have a product that you have too much of and you're not going to be able to sell, let me know. So that you can unload it, make a special, help them out, help yourself out at a better price. Just working with them, it does wonders for sure.
Well, that's like that's definitely like a chef's trick, Like the good chefs are always trying to look at what's their big supply of, what's in season, what's available. Yeah. Then they kind of form their menu out of that.
If you have a good purveyor too, they'll notify you with the quality of product too. I remember when we used to make orange juice, throughout the entire year. we used to change varieties about, I think we changed it about 14 times throughout the entire year, different varieties of oranges, because it's so, it changes in and out of season. I remember sometimes we'll change melons from, we even had orange honeydew sometimes because it was sweeter, but it's always the purveyors, they're on top of that stuff. They know what's coming up. They have time to plan, and they can help you out drastically for sure.
I think a lot of people don't realize they have the ability to do that with a purveyor. They just place their order, and then their order shows up, or sometimes it doesn't show up. But the relationship should really be more than that. You should form a relationship with them. You should push back if something isn't right or if price is too much. You should ask them to shop around. Like it's very much they're a partner of yours, so you don't want to get in a fight with them, but they should very much be working for your business. I told Charlie that recently we saved $45,000 a year in almonds because we buy so many almonds from our purveyor, and I was like, you guys, this is the cost of almonds keeps going up, and it's too much. We use too much of it for it to go up this much. It's significantly impacting us. And I told our purveyor, and our purveyor went and found a almond farm in Georgia and made a direct contact with them. And so they're sourcing it directly from that person, from that farm in Georgia, which was great because ours were coming from like California. Yeah. And so we're using something more local, which ended up being a better product. And it ended up saving us $45,000 a year just on almonds. And the purveyor is still getting, his cut of it. And now this great farm in Georgia is getting their cut of it. And we're still getting a premium product. And so, that's a rare case for it to be that significant, but it is something that you should be pushing back and forth. Maple syrup, honey, all those prices are really high right now. Saying, can you do anything better? A lot of times they just special order things for us and they don't know what volume you're going to go through. So if they're not really doing their part to figure it out, you tell them, hey, listen, if you can bring me in almond butter or honey and lower the price, I can commit to buying, a case every 2 weeks, whatever it is. As long as they know that you're going to go through it, they'll bring it in for you, get you a better price, as long as they know you're going to draw from it. So just make sure that you're having those conversations with your purveyors.
What's the general business model of a purveyor? Are they like a broker, or do they actually buy from the suppliers and resell?
Yeah, in most cases, they buy directly from the farm. They store the product. It's really impressive, especially those large purveyors. Like going on tours of those facilities are awesome. It's like I remember I went on a tour with the place in Vegas at the time called Get Fresh. Their facility was insane. They have a room just for tomatoes, and it has a certain air quality in there to prevent it from over ripening too quickly. Yeah, they have impressive operations, but you'll see where they could actually get certain produce items underripe. They'll store it there for however long, even 3-4 months at a time, before it ripens. And so they're planning ahead as well. But they're really impressive. I suggest if you have a purveyor, try to tour their facility, see how they operate, and go from there.
I was just going to say, one of the things that my purveyors told me that kind of made me think about it a little bit different was they said, we provide amazing products. We like to work with farmers, but at the end of the day, they're making their money. They're a logistics company. They are running trucks.
Right.
And so, forget about what's in the truck. They really don't care what's in their truck. So if they tell you, hey, if you want to keep my business, I need you to go and source this product and hold it for me, whatever. They're happy to do it if they can, because all they care about is getting their trucks moving. They're making money on the transport, on the drop, not on what's really in the truck. I mean, clearly they're making money on that too, but the money in the industry is the logistics of it, just as if they were a moving company. So once I kind of got my head wrapped around that, I was like, oh, dude, he's going to work to get things on that truck for me. He doesn't care if it's green apples or red apples or almonds from Georgia. Like, all he wants to make sure is that I've got a lot of stuff in that truck that's coming to me. because that's where he's making money, is on the drop.
Really interesting. I'd never thought about it that way, but I think you're right. And even the logistics of like buying produce and storing it and sorting it and delivering it, it's all logistics.
It's all logistics. Yeah, I mean, those, we buy fresh bananas to peel and freeze for our bowls, and they will bring us a sheet. It's so different than shopping at the grocery store. They'll bring us a sheet and they'll say, particularly in the summer when we're going through a ton of bananas, sometimes they come in too ripe or not ripe enough or whatever. And finally I was like, we have to get a handle on this, because you're bringing me cases and cases of bananas that I cannot use for days, and I need them like stat. I need to be able to use them the second you drop them. And so they were able to bring me a sheet and colored of bananas, and they were like, Olivia, circle the one you want. What color green do you want on the tip? What color? And I was like, why didn't I know this existed? Right? I mean, I didn't know because I'm not a chef, but I was like, wow, I didn't know that I could really dial in, exactly like what Chef is saying, how ripe I want my bananas to be. And so, those are things that you continue to learn as you develop those relationships. So you can be really specific with them.
You can ask for prep too, can't you?
Oh yeah.
Like, yeah.
There's some that will do like what they call value added product, where they'll take the kale, wash it, chiffonade it for you, stuff like that, peel onions, everything. I mean, there's even some purveyors that you could actually provide them with your recipe, the produce. They'll actually wash it, cryovac it, ship it to you. And you could just notify them like, okay, I'm making my heavy green recipe. I need to make 100 bottles. And they could actually make a kit for you that they call wash the produce and ship it. And it's all just ready to go. I'm sure you're paying a premium for that. I don't recommend it.
That's super interesting.
I mean, you could do a lot of, they're extremely accommodating, the majority of them.
Yeah. And there's a lot of chefs within them too.
Eric, how often do people suggest to us that we start selling produce?
Once a month, probably.
Really?
It's like, oh man, every time we like onboard a new contractor or a new like marketing firm or new something, like, have you ever thought about like selling pre-bundled produce for recipes? Just like it's this genius idea they have, and we've been hearing it every month for like 10 years. And I've always said no, because the produce industry, like, who wants to be in the produce business, But
yeah,
it'd be interesting to partner with a company like this, maybe providing sort of juicing kits to people, but as long as we didn't have to actually handle the produce. Because, yeah, like you said, we don't want to become a logistics company with raw produce, That's super tough. Just imagine all the complaints of stuff showing up, like rotten or sitting on the porch for too long, or...
Yeah.
Forget about it.
Yeah.
Banana's not green enough or too green.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. You don't want customers like Olivia.
Yeah. The crazy banana lady.
What is this banana you brought me? I can't work with this.
Don't you know it's the World Cup going on? You're bringing me these green bananas.
Oh my God.
I have found in my limited produce buying that each purveyor has its kind of own thing that they're really good at getting, or, there's a lot of overlap. How many purveyors is typical to use as a juice business? Like sources of produce? Just one?
I'd say try to get 3.
Yeah. Because like I found out that one of them was just buying all the nuts from the other one. And like, so now I just ask, there's a chef I'm friends with in Buffalo. I ask him like, hey, where can I get the best, leafy greens in the winter? He'll like text me the farm and be like, yeah, go with the, your guy, he'll get the best stuff. But there's just so much research to do that I have found that the chefs know a lot of like locally where to get the stuff. Because we're in Buffalo, we don't grow oranges here and stuff. So it's seasonal. There's new people in town maybe selling stuff that weren't selling stuff. So I just ask someone who's done all the research, and it helps me out a lot.
A lot of times, chef, they rely on the purveyors too. Like remember when we were in Vegas, we used to set up with a purveyor there, bring a box of unique fruit, and they would actually find from Santa Monica just like a couple of ingredients of 10 different kinds, and they'll just deliver the box. It's awesome.
Yeah, I already had this fun thing going when we had an office out there where every week we get a box of like unique produce items, and he'd sort of teach us all about the different cool ingredients and stuff.
Yeah, if you can find a local purveyor, or like a small farm, a lot of people that grow their own sprouts, will come in and to your juice bar probably and say, can we provide you with sprouts? I think that's always nice to do, just as long as you can tell them what kind of volume you do. Like we do local watermelons, which is really nice. So, guests always are like, oh, how much of your things are local? And I think they have a hard time realizing how much volume you go through when you're juicing, right? And sometimes farmers can't keep up with your demand. But if you can find a farmer that will grow things for you with the amount that you need, I mean, that's a beautiful thing right there. I mean, that's really what we all want. I mean, it's like back to what Nori is doing in Japan, right? Is being able to feed people off the land around you. That's really where you want to be. But realistically, just know that as your juice bar grows and your produce needs grow, that becomes more and more difficult. So try to find things like local peaches for your toppings for bowls, local apples right now, pumpkins and watermelons, things that you can easily bring in and off the menu. Greens, I think, are a little bit harder.
Also, that term local, I think it's been abused. That's another one of those terms where a lot of restaurants and CPG companies will throw that term around like we're 100% local. But if you actually look into it, their definition of local is pretty flexible. They're like, oh yeah, sourced within like, yeah, totally. Because first it means something and then it becomes a marketing term, and then eventually maybe it gets regulated.
Yeah. Couple steps between farm and table, but it was at a farm at one point and now it's on the table. So farm to table.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. We can move on. We've got another voicemail here from Kristen.
Hi, Goodnature Radio. This is Kristen from Ventura, California. First, I just wanted to say thank you for the podcast. All of the information you have put out so far has been extremely helpful, especially the smart fridge. I've been looking into that and speaking with Dan, so that's been really, really cool to kind of think about for our company. What I wanted to write in about or record in about was I recently found a deflavorized and decolorized rosemary extract from a company called Cancor, and it is a natural preservative, or I guess that's what they're claiming. And so we tested it out with some smoothie recipes, and it seems to be doing a really good job. I just wanted to know if any of you on the team have heard about this, what your thoughts are if you have heard about it, and if you haven't, I'm curious if some experts in the industry would be willing to look into it to let me know what they think. Our concept is supernatural, and I obviously want to stay away from artificial preservatives, but I'm looking for a longer shelf life for our bottled smoothies, especially if we do the smart fridge route. So I guess just let me know what you think. Anything on that topic would be super helpful. Thanks.
Has anyone heard of this stuff?
I have, not for juice, though.
I don't have any experience with it.
Yeah, so it's well, first of all, I think natural preservative is one of those terms as well that we were just talking about.
Yeah.
I don't know what the definition of that would be, but it does sound good. But I've from what I've heard, that's more for related to fats and oils, a preservative for that. The bottom line with juice and preserving that is you only have a few options if it's raw. Okay, I'm not referring to the further processed product like HCST or HPP or pasteurized product, but it's for a raw product, you're allowed up to 7 days because it's under the FDA food code as a prepared food. So you have 7 days. Out of that, I feel you should always stick with the 3, 4, possibly 5. If it's something like mostly water or certain lemonades, maybe go up to a 7, because that shelf life, the color and the flavor will start changing from there. It will depend on your recipe and your process you're using. And you always got to take an effect if they're going to take it home and they're going to try it the next day or the day after. So you're allowed up to 7 days per local regulations. You're able to get it further, but you would need to get approval, and you would need to have it's called like an exemption or
a variance.
Exact variance. Yeah, correct. Variance. And essentially what that means is it would need to be a certain pH. I believe it's below 3.5 on the pH scale. And then you would have to get approval from them first. And then you would also need to submit samples to a third-party lab to test for the pH, making sure it's below there, as well as taking a pH log in your normal operation as well. So those are really the only options.
I've never heard of it, but it just sounds highly processed. I mean, like, how do they deflavorize and decolorize it? Is it like an alcohol extraction and then they evaporate it and, who knows? It would sound to me like a educational problem with the customers. The customers might have a million questions about it. It's one of those clean label preservatives that
exactly
all the companies are.
They put it on the label as an ingredient, like rosemary extract. Like, oh, rosemary extract. Meanwhile, it's some like chemically treated, deflavorized, decolorized preservative.
Yeah, and when you process something, you're allowed to do things to it that you don't put on the label. So I just don't trust the processing industry. It's not that I don't trust a juice bar using an ingredient, but like they might not even know what they're getting. It's how I feel about it as a consumer of juice. I'm buying super fresh, healthy thing, so I want it to be as super fresh and healthy as I can. I think that I am happy to buy recipes that are preserved with fruits and vegetables, like add extra lemon, but I don't like if you have to process those fruits and vegetables in order for them to be preservative. That's my simple thought on it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. And the other thing I would think about from a consumer standpoint is if you're writing lavender, like I have an enhanced water that has lavender in it. And I love lavender. It's one of my favorite things to use in the kitchen. But lavender has such a distinct taste. And I know that they're saying that they're, processing it to take out the flavor and the color of it. But just from a consumer mindset, if you're putting it on the label and I'm seeing that it has lavender in it, lavender, another one of those ingredients, it's like love it or hate it, right? Like you may lose a customer that sees lavender on there and thinks this juice is going to be really floral, very lavendery taste, and when maybe it doesn't at all because they've processed it. But again, do you have the opportunity to talk to that customer and then say, well, actually it's lavender, but it doesn't taste like lavender or look like lavender? Because, so then it's just like, what is this conversation that we're having? I think there's other ways to, I think the intention is good, but I think there's other ways to get there from a date preservation standpoint. And there's also just beauty in there being a shelf life to our product, and just make sure that you're within a safe range. And then guess what? It's time to batch out and make another one, I think, so I think her intentions were good. I'm not familiar with that product, and it's definitely something that I would be digging deeper into.
Bottled smoothies are probably tough too.
Yeah, I agree.
I would my advice would be stay away from all preservatives. Just add some lemon or something. And no matter what anybody says when they're marketing their preservatives to you, that stuff is made in a lab and it's not natural. So the fact that you said your business is super natural, I think you should just not even be looking at preservatives. I think maybe
now if dried lavender, if dried lavender did that naturally or an extract did that naturally, then I think that's okay, right? Like if I'm like, hey, I know that dried lavender helps extend shelf life just like lemon does, then maybe I would play with that a little bit more. But you're talking about something that's been chemically changed, right, to make that happen. So that's where it's different for me.
How do you make extract? With oil? Or it can be oil or alcohol, right?
Or oil.
Yeah, and then and then you like distill out your extraction medium or whatever they call it. But
okay,
it's
but
not,
you don't have to add like baking soda or any other agents to
I don't know.
do it, right?
I imagine it's really complicated and there's lots of steps. And there's probably really highly processed ways to do it and really natural things you could do in your kitchen at home. But
yeah, I guess where I'm going with this is I'd even be skeptical of extracts myself. I mean, I'm a purist.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Unless you see the process, and that's the problem with an extract is like you don't know how it's made or how they made it. Or you can't explain it to a customer necessarily.
Right, but like you would use like a vanilla extract.
Yeah, like the simple basic extracts, I think are good. Infused oils.
I'm skeptical even of extracts because, like Eric said, some are probably made super naturally, some are probably super processed, and how can you really know what you're buying unless you make it yourself? So,
or if you buy from like a super reputable brand or something. But
I guess,
I mean, yeah, it's like you don't really know how they got it, or maybe they source ingredients and blend them together and then sell you the mix of ingredients.
Yeah, or maybe they're buying rosemary oil from China and then infusing that and calling it extract or something. You just don't know.
As part of, I've been working here, I don't know, a decade or something. I've seen tons of processing plants, and I usually leave going, I don't know. There's some things going on in the processing industry that I don't quite trust the intentions. But so that's why I look for whole ingredients.
But I appreciate her submitting the question though, because I think it's good to know what's kind of going around the industry, So I appreciate the question. And if there's anything else going on like that, I think that they should continue to drop it on the voice notes because it's good for us all to kind of know before.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, this is the first time I ever heard of that. So I definitely learned that that's a thing today, and I never knew that before. So yeah, thank you, Kristen. All right, so now we'll go into our final segment, which is a new one called Pro Tips. So Olivia, what is your pro tip this week?
Okay, I will say that I've spoken to some lovely clients this week that are needing all sorts of different things. And one thing that a trend that I noticed, a concerning trend that I noticed, was I had about 3 or 4 clients who were concerned that they weren't selling enough juice. And it's when I dug a little bit deeper and I said, show me your juice case right now, like in present moment, show it to me. What's happening? When did you last produce? What were your sales? When did those juices sell? How long have you not had juice in their case? I'm realizing that a lot of people are not selling juice because they don't have juice in their case, right? So they've got the right machine. They're not doing a made to order juice. They either are working on an M1 or most of the time an X1 mini, even an X1. I even have a client that has an X1. And I'm not saying this to trash them. I'm just saying I'm realizing that people are leaving money on the table in their business by not having their production dates and times organized correctly. And as a result, they're coming to me and they're saying, well, 80% of my business is bowls and smoothies. And I'm like, that's weird. Show me your juice case. And then they show me their juice case and there's like 3 or 4 SKUs in there. And of the 3 or 4 SKUs, there's only 2 or 3 bottles per. So if you're having a problem with juice, you're thinking you're not getting enough juice sales, cleanse sales, or you're finding that you don't have juice in the case all the time, please come to us because I think there are some very easy things that Chef Ari and I can help you tweak so that you don't have to change a million things. But I really feel like a lot of people are losing a ton of sales and money on the table by not having a stocked fridge. You need to have a stocked fridge, whatever that looks like for you. It's just so important. It shouldn't be, unless you're doing made to order juice, your case should be looking beautiful before your operation even opens. I talked to somebody today who said that, well, I only sell juice in the afternoon. And I said, well, why is your case not have any juice in right now? And she said, well, because we juice in the afternoon. And I'm like, well, people are only coming, it only takes 2 or 3 times to walk into a juice bar to realize there's no juice in the fridge in the mornings before they stop coming in the mornings anymore. And they realize, hey, these people only juice in the afternoon. And that's why you're having afternoon juice clients, not because morning juice clients don't exist, but they're reacting to your business. So, and they're reacting to your production. So rather than putting a ton of rules around your guest of, you need to place an order here and pickup will be ready then, and these are the days we produce, there should be juice in your case all the time. And if there's not juice in your case all the time, there's something we need to tweak. So please reach out, because that's something that's an easy fix.
And Ari, what's your pro tip this week?
That's my pro tip.
Yeah. No, that's a good one, Olivia. And
thanks.
A lot of times, don't go with a huge reach-in refrigeration unit.
Yeah.
You know, like a lot of times, people think bigger is better, but go with something nice.
Much easier to smell.
Always look full.
Fill a small fridge. Makes sense.
Yeah, for sure. So pro tip from me, I'd say I'll keep it along with recipe development and stuff. Incorporating spices into your recipes. So a cool technique you could do when you do use spices, try to use whole spices if at all possible. Toast them beforehand. You know, it kind of activates the oils, makes them a lot more flavorful, wakes them up. But also when you're creating a juice, think about, you could actually add it into the bag and grind the produce on top. Get the flavor without those specks floating around. So say you do like cinnamon, especially those ciders and stuff, you could add those spices directly in the bag, grind the apples, whatever you want on top. You'll get the flavor of it without having discoloration or little particles floating around, unless you want that.
Oh man, that's actually brilliant. What a tip.
All right, I have a pro tip this week. My pro tip is learn how to calculate percentages if you don't know how. I'd say that we have wonderful customers really into juice, but it's amazing how many I've met that don't know how to calculate percentages. So they don't know how to calculate their food costs. They don't know how to calculate their profit or their margin or lots of things. So it seems super basic maybe, but just if you're uncomfortable with math, with basic math, I think maybe commit to yourself that you'll spend some time on learning it, and it will help you run your business a lot better.
Nice.
Eric, you want to do off the cuff pro tip?
Yeah. So this is to carry off Charlie's point about percentages. I recently was talking to a friend of mine who doesn't know how to build a basic spreadsheet at all, doesn't know how to use a spreadsheet. So like, and that kind of blew my mind. I make 1,000 spreadsheets a day, but there's free spreadsheet software. Every computer probably, Apple stuff comes with free spreadsheet software. If you have a Google account, you have Google Sheets, which is free. Just like really basic recipe spreadsheets are so helpful. And in life, I do spreadsheets for stuff that how do you run a budget or anything like this without a simple spreadsheet? So I found a YouTube thing I sent him so he learned how to do a spreadsheet. But
nice.
Learn how to do a simple spreadsheet.
You just improved his quality of life by like half a percent. Great.
Yeah, and he'll be able to calculate that now because he can use a spreadsheet. Yeah.
I get extremely skeptical whenever I see software ads that are like better than a spreadsheet for doing this or better than a spreadsheet for doing that. I'm like, I don't know. Spreadsheets are pretty good. They're just like a nice, easy, organized way to think about things. All right. Thank you guys once again for an awesome episode. This is a reminder we're off next week. Everybody have an awesome holiday week. And we'll see y'all in a couple weeks.
Go USA.
Go Thanksgiving.
Go Thanksgiving. Go and soccer. All right, see you guys.
See you, everybody.
Baby say, oh, it's the way I make my juice. Pressing fruits and roots. This week I did it my way. Baby say, oh, now let's have some fun. There is nothing greater than Fridays at Goodnature.